It started with an unexpected phone call from 10 years in the past. Through the receiver, the girl's voice was rebellious, yet laced with a bubbling excitement. "Caleb, 10 years from now, do we have a boy or a girl?" I replied calmly, "You have a daughter." The girl clicked her tongue, then pitched her voice into a playful whine. "My sweet Caleb, promise me you won't love her more than you love me." Outside the phone conversation, a woman in a sharp business suit, heavily pregnant, stared at me with indifference. "Hubby, I'm about to give birth. The child isn't yours. Just sign the papers. You need to take a long, hard look at yourself anyway." As I signed my name on the divorce agreement, I answered the voice on the phone. "I won't. I would never love another man's daughter or another man's wife." The girl on the line didn't seem to process the words immediately. She paused for several seconds before exploding into a low growl. "Fuck, what the hell?" But I didn't listen to another word. I hung up. Then, stroke by stroke, I finished signing my name. Victoria Sterling turned around. Her features had been refined by the years, stripping away the reckless abandon of her youth and replacing it with a mature, lethal sex appeal. She glanced at the signature on the divorce papers, her fingers pausing slightly. After a moment, she spoke, her voice dripping with mockery. "Hubby, so decisive." I put the pen down calmly, feeling a wave of exhaustion. "Let's just end it. There's no point in dragging this out." Victoria's expression shifted slightly, as if trying to discern if I was bluffing. Suddenly, my phone erupted with a frantic ringtone. She clicked her tongue, smiling a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hubby, are you that pathetic? Still listening to my old voice recordings at a time like this? How much money is that scammer milking out of you by pretending to be me in high school?" I froze, knowing exactly what she was doing. She was using that victorious posture to goad me. In the past, I would have taken the bait, screaming like a hysteric madman. But I didn't understand why. Wasn't divorce what she wanted? Yeah, you're right. I didn't have the energy to dwell on it anymore. I pushed her hand away and quietly turned off my phone. Victoria's smile stiffened for a second. Her voice dropped, carrying a cold warning. "It better be that way, Caleb. Don't let me catch you pulling any stunts. Otherwise, you know my methods." I dug my fingernails into my palm until the sharp pain forced me to let go. I knew Victoria's methods all too well. Last week, I had publicly humiliated Julian Cross at the company, exposing him for hitting on married women and wrecking homes. He was a bona fide homewrecker. The very next day, I was forced to resign and sent home to rest. Years of hard work and climbing the corporate ladder evaporated into nothing because Julian felt aggrieved. That was Victoria's punishment for me. I took a deep breath and watched Victoria's retreating back as she strode away. She walked too fast. I didn't even get the chance to tell her to stop calling me hubby. If this were 10 years ago, beat me to death, and I still wouldn't believe that the person causing such an ugly rift between Victoria and me would be Julian Cross. In high school, I was the golden boy, the one everyone thought had the world at his feet. Julian, on the other hand, was the school's designated loser. He was poor, average, and chased after Victoria with an ignorance of his own station. Just as Victoria had chased after me with tireless, crazy devotion. The difference was I eventually responded to Victoria. Julian never got so much as a glance from her. Until a year ago, when Victoria took me to a gala. I saw Julian there, decked out in a suit, radiating confidence. I also saw the momentary stun in Victoria's eyes, a flash of awe. It was brief, so brief that I didn't realize who her affair partner was, the one causing our marriage to implode, until Julian smugly threw a pregnancy test in my face. Julian acted like he'd finally won a war, parading his victory before me. "Caleb, I've held this back for years. You don't actually think you're charming, do you?" In high school, Victoria used to hug me intimately, claiming my bad temper was all because she spoiled me. But that day, after Julian provoked me into punching him to the ground, she turned cold. Her tone was icy and mocking. "Hubby, you really should look in a mirror. Insecure, violent, barbaric, and vulgar." That fight was explosive. I was so broken I wanted to ruin Victoria, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Victoria had tried to soothe me once, promising that after the baby was born, we would go back to how we were. But I hated it. Watching her belly swell, I hated Victoria for betraying me, for turning my perfect youth into a joke. I hated myself even more for not being able to let go. We tortured each other, becoming a bitter couple everyone whispered about. At the peak of our conflict, Julian sent a video of them having sex to my phone. I shook with rage and got into a massive screaming match with Victoria. I smashed everything in the house. I attacked her with the most vicious words I could find. I even threatened to go scorched earth and leak the video online. But Victoria defeated me with a single sentence. She sat on the sofa, her smile loose and unbothered. Hubby, even if I openly keep a lover, have illegitimate child after illegitimate child, and sex tapes fly everywhere, do you have the guts to divorce me? I froze, my hands and feet turning ice cold. It felt like a bucket of freezing water in the dead of winter, leaving me shivering in disgrace. Victoria laughed, her eyes full of scorn. You're so pathetic. After that, Victoria had me completely under her thumb. She bought Julian a villa, went to Hong Kong with him for checkups, and even threw a celebratory banquet when they found out it was a girl. She made sure the whole world knew she didn't love me anymore, turning me into a punchline for gossip. Sometimes, watching them love each other so openly and happily, I doubted myself. Maybe I was the one who should disappear, but I wasn't resigned to that fate. Even guarding an empty house, even becoming a paranoid lunatic, I refused to let go. Until that day, when I scrolled past a video interview from her high school. It was Victoria, pregnant, bringing Julian back to donate money to the school. In the video, she wore a long denim dress, standing under a poplar tree, smiling softly. For a moment, I saw the Victoria who used to wait for me after class. But I blinked, and I saw Julian tenderly stroking her belly. When the reporter asked about their relationship, they looked at each other and smiled, the picture of bliss. My eyes burned. I wanted to put the phone down, but then I heard the reporter ask, "What is your biggest regret from your student days?" Victoria didn't hesitate. She looked at Julian and said, "Probably that I was blind back then and didn't fall for him. I hope heaven gives me a do-over. This time, let me be the one to chase you." Julian squeezed her shoulder, his smile shy. The reporter exclaimed in envy, and the surrounding students cheered. Only I stood frozen in place. It was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. One beat chasing another. After a long time, the high towers crashed down. Something inside me completely shattered. It was my obsession with our youth. Turns out, letting go really just takes a single instant. I blinked away the sting in my eyes and wiped the past from my mind. Then I got up and threw everything in the house that belonged to Victoria into the trash, piece by piece. When I was done, I exhaled. I turned on my phone and saw a string of missed calls. I was certain the girl on the other end was the real, teenage Victoria. But my heart was a flat line. I ignored the number and called a friend back. He was inviting me to a class reunion next week. I didn't refuse. I said yes. I tried to put the phone down, but I saw the frantic text messages coming in. "Fuck, don't scare me, Caleb, what happened? Pick up the phone. Your girlfriend just ran 8 laps around the track, and now her heart hurts like hell. If you don't reply, I swear I'll drop dead right here just to show you." Seeing the familiar words, I realized she was talking about that rainy day. Someone had maliciously torn up my textbooks and covered my desk in filth. Victoria had gone cold, picked up a chair, and smashed the culprit's head open. Afterward, the teacher punished her by making her run 8 laps. She got sick immediately after and missed the competition she'd been preparing for 2 years. I remembered that besides me, Julian was also heartbroken back then. He looked at me with pure resentment and demanded, "Rich boy, can you stop being so arrogant? Watching her suffer like this for you. You're enjoying it, aren't you?" I opened my mouth to speak, but Victoria cut me off. She looked at Julian and said bluntly, "What business is it of yours? I'm happy to do it. Got a problem?" That day, Julian's face was paler than Victoria's. But time changes everything. The teenage Victoria probably never imagined that making Julian sad would be the biggest regret of her successful 30-year-old self. The reunion had already started when I finally arrived. I didn't get a car in the divorce settlement, so when the rain started pouring, I had to cover my head with my bag, looking slightly pathetic. When I walked in, panting, I saw Julian in a tailored suit. He looked me up and down, his smile laced with superiority. "Caleb, I never thought you'd be doing this poorly after the divorce." The high school classmates around us laughed like they were watching a show. Life is unpredictable. Even if Victoria cheated and Julian was a willing homewrecker, so what? Kicking a man when he's down is human nature. I looked up, scanning Victoria's face as she watched with a mocking smile. I dug my nails into my palm, suppressing the faint sting in my heart. Then someone gasped, "Wait, is this Julian?" Everyone's attention shifted to a phone screen. Someone had leaked the sex tape of Julian and Victoria. Someone joked, "Damn, pregnancy play." The next second, Victoria, face cold as ice, smashed a wine bottle over the guy's head. "Shut the hell up." But Julian's face was draining of color, turning whiter by the second. He looked furious, grabbing a glass and hurling it violently at me. "You leaked this." Victoria turned her dark gaze on me, her voice low and freezing. "Hubby, did you forget what I told you?" I didn't dodge the glass in time. A sharp pain exploded on my forehead. The water from the glass soaked me, making me look even more wretched than when I walked in. I pulled out a tissue, wiped the blood trickling down my brow, then raised my hand and slapped Victoria across the face with everything I had. That slap is payback for Julian. Victoria's head snapped to the side. Her expression shifted rapidly, settling on disbelief. I didn't give her a chance to hit back. I rubbed my stinging hand and turned to leave without hesitation. The rain was still pouring outside. I answered a call as I walked, enjoying the chaotic scene behind me. The money has been wired to your account. Pleasure doing business. I hummed an acknowledgement and hung up. I hadn't leaked the video myself. A scandal about a CEO cheating would have a massive impact on her company, so I simply sold it to Victoria's biggest business rival. Victoria hadn't given me much in the settlement. I had to secure my own exit strategy. Just then, a thunderclap tore through the sky. Caleb, I finally found you. I heard Victoria's voice chasing after me and immediately pocketed my phone to walk faster. But I hadn't gone 2 steps before someone hugged me tight from behind. Warm breath hit my ear, the girl's voice passionate and urgent. Caleb, I saw everything. I froze. I turned around and saw an 18-year-old Victoria standing there. She had somehow crossed over. She was wearing her high school uniform. Her face was pale, her eyes red. Recovering from the shock, I took a deep breath and pushed her away calmly. You've got the wrong person. I don't know you. The teenage Victoria's breathing hitched, her voice trembling. You clearly recognized me. I didn't speak again. I tried to turn away, but she grabbed my hand. She started slapping her own face with my hand, crying out, "Hit me. I'm an animal. I cheated. I hurt you. I deserve to die." I frowned, impatient. That's enough. She looked sick, staring at me with helpless panic. But my heart felt nothing. I had loved Victoria deeply in my youth, but people change. Our memories had been ground to dust by disappointment after disappointment. I turned and hailed a cab back to the villa, thankfully the one asset awarded to me. The rain poured all night. When the sky cleared and I opened the front door, I saw a soaked girl curled up in the corner. After the initial shock, I had to bring teenage Victoria inside. If she died on my doorstep, it would be hard to explain. She was already feverish and groggy, but when she heard me allow her in, she grinned. Caleb, I walked so long to find you. I handed her medicine and water without a word. She lowered her eyes, carefully taking off her soaked shoes. She looked at me and mumbled, Caleb, I can only stay in this world for a month. Let me stay. Let me make it up to you, okay? I stared at the deep brown scar on her ankle and said nothing. That scar was from our sophomore year. I had accidentally fallen off the auditorium stage. Victoria had dived to catch me, and a loose wooden board had gouged a chunk of flesh from her leg. The girl who had gritted her teeth through the pain, pretending to be cool and saying she was fine, now overlapped with the girl in front of me. I took a deep breath and compromised. Fine. It was only a month. We wouldn't have any connection after that anyway. Victoria grinned again, changed out of her dirty clothes, and actively took over mopping, laundry, and dishes. I didn't make a sound, just adjusted my emotions and ignored her. She wasn't discouraged. Every day, she tried to cook different meals and went out to buy fresh flowers. The card on the flowers always read, Hope Caleb is happy every day. But I wasn't happy. I placed the flowers on the table and turned around to see a cold-faced Victoria standing at the door. I thought you were cooking. I stopped, realizing this was 30-year-old Victoria. I shut my mouth, deciding to change the villa's passcode tonight. Victoria walked over, face grim. Hubby, Caleb, we need to settle accounts. I knew she had discovered I sold the video to her rival. The online backlash against her was severe. Her stock had plummeted. Dealing with the company crisis while pregnant made her look exceptionally gloomy. I had been kicked out of the company and divorced. I wasn't afraid of what she could do to me anymore. I was about to tell her to get out when her voice turned freezing cold. Who sent the flowers? I swallowed my words and replied calmly. Does it matter to you? Victoria's expression turned ugly. I couldn't tell if she was mad about the video or the flowers. Are you that desperate for a woman? She sneered. We haven't even been divorced for a month. The cooling off period isn't even over. Strictly speaking, I'm still your wife. I smirked, countering without hesitation. So what? Even if I found someone, what can you do? Victoria was clearly incensed. I pressed on. What? You can cheat and find a man while married, but I can't find a woman during the divorce cooling off period. Victoria, don't double standard people deserve to die early and reincarnate fast. Veins popped on Victoria's forehead. She was barely restraining her rage. But then, footsteps sounded on the spiral staircase. The girl walked down, face cold. Victoria froze, then narrowed her eyes. Looking at the girl's face, she seemed to realize something. The anger vanished. replaced by a mocking curve of her lips. Caleb, you can't let me go that much? Divorced, and you go find a look-alike substitute. The 18-year-old Victoria didn't say a word. She just rolled up her sleeves and swung her fist. Victoria took the punch right to the mouth, stumbling back, bleeding. Her face turned dark and violent. She cursed under her breath and lunged, locking into a brawl with her younger self. I watched calmly as they traded blows, flesh hitting flesh. I didn't say a word. I just watched the show. Teenage Victoria was fit and strong. Adult Victoria had lived a life of luxury and excess, her body weakened by alcohol and indulgence. Despite being older, she lost the upper hand quickly and was pinned to the floor, taking heavy hits. I frowned as I saw adult Victoria groping for a heavy crystal ashtray on the floor. Just as she was about to bring it down, I picked up a vase and smashed it directly onto her arm. The sound of shattering porcelain froze them both. Teenage Victoria looked at me, her expression a mix of sorrow and joy. Adult Victoria stared blankly at the bruise forming on her arm. Her eyes reddened, and she roared, "You smashed me for someone who looks like me?" I looked at her hurt expression and felt nothing but sarcasm. "Wells, you don't have the confidence to think I'm still pining for you at this point, do you?" Victoria's chest heaved with rage, but she couldn't speak. I pointed to the door. "Now get out." Teenage Victoria immediately got up and dragged the adult Victoria toward the exit. For some reason, the adult Victoria didn't struggle. She just stared at me dead on, tried to find something in my eyes. But there was nothing there but cold indifference. When they got outside, the 18-year-old expression was complex, extreme disgust mixed with gnashing hatred. After a long moment, adult Victoria heard one cryptic sentence. "I know exactly how much I love him. So you animal, you will regret this." I didn't care what they said. I went upstairs and checked my bank balance. Victoria's company was premarital property. I had only received this villa and a pitiful amount of cash from the divorce. I actually had to thank Julian. The video he used to provoke me had earned me enough to buy a decent car. Speak of the devil. The phone rang. I hesitated for 2 seconds, then answered. "Caleb, look, even with your dirty tricks, Victoria still chose me. In another month, she'll give birth to my child. You and Victoria were married for 10 years, right? How come you never had a kid?" Listening to his cheerful voice, I curled my lip in a sneer. Guess why I didn't? Victoria's eggs were certified by doctors as low quality. I didn't want to go through hell just to produce a defective child. Julian forced a confident tone. "So what? My daughter will be born into wealth and glory. Weak health? Sickly? Who cares? She'll live a life of luxury forever." I laughed, letting my voice drip with malice. "Then you better take her to enjoy it while she's still alive." Julian exploded into cursing. "You're just jealous of me." I clicked my tongue and hung up. I thought life might settle down, but a few days later, a lawyer showed up with several burly men, demanding, "Sir, when will you be moving out?" I was stunned. It turned out Victoria had pulled some strings to reclaim the house. She really wasn't leaving me a way to survive. I looked at the familiar number on my phone and hung up on it. 2 minutes later, a text from Victoria arrived. "Caleb, let's talk." I replied, "Go to hell." Teenage Victoria sensed my mood and looked nervous. I narrowed my eyes at that face, identical to the adult Victoria's. "Victoria," I called out. She looked startled, stuttering, "Caleb, what is it? You said you wanted to atone. Is that true?" 30 minutes later, I led her to meet Victoria's business rival. The rival was a calculating middle-aged man. His eyes lit up when he saw teenage Victoria sitting obediently in the chair. "You're saying her fingerprints match? Her Face ID matches? Even her handwriting?" I nodded calmly. "She is Victoria, just a younger version." The rival and I shared a satisfied smile. 10 minutes later, Victoria's company shares were sold to her rival at market price. The money, naturally, was wired to my account. I walked out feeling refreshed and patted teenage Victoria on the shoulder. "I don't blame you anymore." She smiled, answering without hesitation. "As long as you're happy." The weather was great. I decided to pay Julian a visit. No reason, just pure provocation. When he saw me walk in with teenage Victoria, his expression faltered. I saw his eyes turn red and misty. He recognized the girl in front of him. It was the 18-year-old Victoria who had captured his heart. "Victoria Julian Guisperth." Teenage Victoria looked at him blankly, saying nothing. But Julian was clearly losing his composure. He saw the long-lost coldness in her eyes, the indifference of the girl he couldn't have in his youth. "Go buy me a water," I told her, sending her away so I could look at Julian calmly. Julian finally snapped out of it. He asked, dazed, "What is happening?" "Doesn't matter," I replied. Julian was silent for a moment, then suddenly chuckled. Right, it doesn't matter. She loved you at 18, but at 30, didn't she abandon you for me anyway? It doesn't matter if she doesn't love me now. She'll love me in the future. I shrugged indifferently. We're adults. We should chase things that matter. Like money. You should milk as much money for Victoria as you can while you have the chance. Don't wait until the kid is born and you have no money for medical bills. That was my final act of mercy. Julian didn't understand. He thought I was mocking him. He laughed out loud. What? You have nothing left, so you have to curse others to feel better. You're pathetic, Caleb. Look at how low you've fallen. I chuckled softly. I hope you can stay this optimistic in a bit. Walking out of the ward, I ran into 30-year-old Victoria. She saw me and wasn't surprised. It was like she knew I'd come. Caleb, let's talk. I yawned and tilted my chin. Fine, speak. Victoria glanced at the hospital room behind her, then lowered her eyes, making a decision. Let's remarry. I paused. What did you say? Seeing my reaction, her tone firmed up. Caleb, I can't accept you having another woman. If we remarry, I'll send Julian abroad. The child in my belly. We can pretend it's yours. We'll raise it together. I laughed. I couldn't even feel disgusted. It was just absurd. I turned and knocked on Julian's door. I know you're not asleep. Did you hear that clearly? Victoria froze. Suddenly, a loud crash came from inside the room, as if someone had hurled something in blind fury. Then came Julian's voice, straining against a breakdown. Get out. Both of you get out. I clicked my tongue and turned back to sneer at Victoria. Victoria, what makes you think I'd ever want you back? Her lips pressed into a thin line. After a long silence, she said coldly, It's because of that bitch, isn't it? That girl is obviously bad news. Caleb, I advise you to think clearly. I laughed aloud. Victoria, your self-awareness is truly impressive. She looked confused. Before she could speak, her phone rang. Her face grew grave as she listened. Then, as if hearing something impossible, she roared in disbelief. What did you say? I sold the company? I took 2 steps back and turned to walk away. Just then, teenage Victoria trotted over with a Coke. Caleb, I got room temperature. She stopped, seeing the veins pulsing on adult Victoria's forehead, watching her scream in impotent rage. Immediately serious, she grabbed me and pulled me back, and we bolted. As we reached the exit, I heard adult Victoria's voice cracking, turning into a cry of pain. Doctor, get a doctor. My water broke. I went home and checked the news. Sure enough, the sale of the company and the change in shareholders were everywhere. The internal company chat group was exploding, questioning if Victoria had lost her mind. Julian was in that group. He definitely saw it. I saw he had called me several times. He must have guessed. I checked my balance again. The massive sum was there. I immediately contacted my former subordinates. After I left, Julian had bullied them, and some had already quit. It didn't matter. I had enough capital now to start my own company. Once everything was settled, life felt beautiful. I even agreed to teenage Victoria's request to visit our old high school. Despite the video interview I'd seen, I still had deep feelings for the place that held my best memories. Teenage Victoria put on her uniform and pulled me into the school. I'll go buy us 2 ice cream cones. I wonder if old Chun is still at the commissary. I held her hand and said quietly, He's been gone for a long time. She smiled. What about our homeroom teacher? Is he still teaching? I fell silent. The summer after graduation, he drowned saving someone. She went quiet. She bought me an ice cream and dragged me to the library. There, she excitedly found a bookmark we had placed in a book years ago. It was shaped like a leaf, with words written in earnest. Caleb must be happy every day. It was teenage Victoria's handwriting. I licked the ice cream and said calmly, Leave it there. She paused, then nodded. As evening approached, I decided to leave. De enaje Victoria saden dejarme. Her voice was raspy. Caleb, can you forgive me? My voice betrayed no emotion. You weren't the one who did wrong. She curled her lips into a soft smile. This time I won't lose Caleb. Her voice grew faint, her figure turning translucent. I remembered today was the day she had to go back. Looking at the ice cream in my hand, I moved my lips but said nothing. She looked at me deeply one last time, then forced herself to look away and ran forward into the distance. Wrinkles had already begun to form at the corners of my eyes. Watching her back, I felt a trance-like shift. The wind blew through the poplars, rustling the leaves. It felt like that summer again. The girl turned back, grinning at me. 1 month later, I saw 30-year-old Victoria again. She had successfully given birth, but the baby was in the ICU. Congenital immune deficiency, destined to be sickly for life. This time, I felt incredibly calm. Not even hate remained. The recent turmoil had clearly taken a toll on her. She had figured out that the little bitch was herself. I wasn't sure if she realized it on her own or if Julian told her. Anyway, the teenage Victoria was gone. None of it mattered anymore. Actually, when I first guessed it, I didn't believe it, she said. I didn't believe I would do something so self-destructive. But the 18-year-old me probably wouldn't believe she'd cheat in the future either. Victoria laughed, a bitter sound. I simply said, "You should be thinking about how to raise your daughter." She stiffened, lowering her eyes. "Actually, in the beginning, I didn't want to divorce you. I just really want a child. When I first brought up divorce, I was just bluffing. Later, I thought, if you just reflected on yourself, if you were just a bit more tolerant of me. I never actually wanted you to leave me. I don't have that much feeling for Julian," she continued. "That interview, I knew you would watch it. I just wanted to make you angry. Victoria pinched the bridge of her nose, fighting back a sob. She looked up, eyes red. "Caleb, would you be willing to?" "No." I cut her off cleanly. "Victoria, I don't love you anymore. Why should I wait for you in the same spot after you hurt me 1,000 times? I'm not that stupid, and you aren't that charming. Don't contact me again. Traitors can never be forgiven." Victoria moved her mouth, but in the end, she said nothing. 2 years later, company anniversary gala. I stood on stage as the CEO, greeted by thunderous applause. Most of the people in the room were talent I had poached from Victoria's old company. I raised a glass and gave a speech. After drinking my fill, I walked out of the hotel at a leisurely pace, my secretary and assistant trailing behind, updating me on recent figures. As I listened, I suddenly saw a familiar face. It was Julian Cross, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. After Victoria's company was sold, she survived by selling off her houses and cars. She didn't care about Julian, refused to marry him, and dumped the child on him. She only provided a fixed monthly allowance for the kid. Unfortunately, over the last year, her attempts to restart a business failed. She blew through all her money and collapsed completely. She spent her days drinking, eventually unable to even pay the child support. So now, Julian was working as a waiter at the hotel, raising that sickly daughter on his own. When he saw me, there was no hate in his eyes. Day after day of high-intensity labor had hollowed him out. He was numb, exhausted. Even seeing me elicited no reaction. I didn't say anything either. I walked right past him. But as we brushed shoulders, Julian suddenly spoke, his voice flat. "She died last month." I paused. I knew who he was talking about, but I still said nothing, didn't ask for the cause. I just continued walking, taking large, calm strides away from there. After all, the girl I loved had died a long time ago. Story complete.